Hello, now we are going to discuss about cloud service development and testing part. So in this we'll discuss how NetBeans Eclipse like IDE integrated development environment helps in development of a web service, fundamental web service. And from that web service you can have cloud computing features that are available from higher end. So we'll see on very introductory and very basic of cloud development. So this is old version of NetBeans web service deployment environment. So here you can see that there's like uh, you can create a project from file. This these are for creation of new projects. So these are the uh, web project that has a web service named as some that is having Java codes, simple Java codes, and this is a project, and this is Java codes that are there, and you can create a class like this. So private resources are being declared, and then you have entity management, entity manager, get entity, and then rest as the operation for that. So you can have post operation create. So this is like RESTful web service they had introduced. So this post is there. So there are a few things like post, put, delete, and update that we'll discuss later. So this is the uh, simple Java code like this you can write and edit, and you can have from GitHub repository. You can download some existing web service and then try editing that code and redeploy it. So there's a server is also working there, and they'll have different kind of servers. Like here, it is Glassfish server 3.x. So they are running a database as well, and Glassfish server is running over here, and this is customer DB dot restful that restful service is there. So next, how web service works in admins. So it has been supported with standard Java Enterprise Edition like JEE, which is very common used for Java development. It is having Jakarta XML web services, JAX dash WS for the development purpose, and Jakarta RESTful web services for the development purposes. APIs are there for RESTful web service development. Then Jakarta XML binding JAX B for web services standards. So these are the API that helps you to develop the a web service. So we'll see uh, how to create and develop a web service from Java class or using a Wsdl file. So it is saying that you are creating calculator web service.java, which with this you can add. This is a design, so it's user friendly. Like you can add an operation, like they are doing some so addition operation they had declared. So you can create an operation like this, and addition operation is there. So int I and j is the input parameter, and according to that you'll provide an output parameter as well over here. So that's how it works. Then what happens that here in source, in this source code, you can go and edit the uh, business logic or the code. So this is simple example. You can have a complex example with different parameters over here, and business logic defined over here in source. So Java classes annotated with the at the rate javax dot jws dot java web service to automatically recognize that it is a web service project. So when this annotation is there, so it will automatically recognize that there's a Java based web service project. So this is how it is working. Like in this, like, mm, you can convert a soap based web service to the RESTful. So it is also possible to convert soap based web service to the RESTful. Then there's also possibility that you can have web services for the customization. Editors are there, so you can have good written editors. You have this design and source that we discussed, that actually synchronizes with the web service client. So the client would also have a similar uh, mm, client stuff that we discussed. So client have a code that will able to send a request to the web server, and it will also able to client will also able to that deserialize, unmarshalling that the response that was being sent uh, by the web server. This is how actually this works, web servers and web server processing. Then we can have next as JAX RS. So it's just 2.0. So nowadays it would be much higher than this. RESTful web services are being developed with the help of this JAX RS. Java Persistent API. JPA is a API which creates entity, and their database are being aligned with the help of this API. You can use this Java Persistent API with for that. Java RESTful web service could actually wrap the entity bean in the entity beans, and you can provide crude operation like create some resource, read some resource, update some resource, then delete some resource. So this crude operation could be done with that database in the uh, along with some entity beans. So this is a RESTful web service. Thereafter, you'll have web service client. So you can automatically generate some part of web service code for the client that can invoke a web service, both for the RESTful and SOAP based web service. So it's such that it will be like a JavaScript or client stub from the WADL. So web service application descriptive language. So you can create an automated web service client code for invoking RESTful and SOAP based web service. And you can it is written generate RESTful Java client in Java web and Java application. So you invoke the web service with the help of Java based client, and you can uh, call the web server, and it will respond it, and that Java based client sub will do the processing. Thereafter, you can create server side mashup. It's possible to create server side mashup, that there could be multiple web services are being combined together and provided as a application and web application, you can say. So you can add various services to that WSDL part to invoke. There is user-friendly way for development in NetBeans. So you can have Pojo like language, servlet, JSP, JSF, PHP pages for front end type of things, and you can do drag and drop for development purpose. So this IDE would be very useful and user friendly for the development purpose, that give you provide you the access for the code. So this is example of that some existing web service resources like Amazon web services are there, then Flickr web services are there, Google AdSense and all these web services are there, Twitter APIs are there. So these are the existing APIs that were being uh, given in the NetBeans, and similarly they are also available in the Eclipse as well. We'll discuss that as well. So that access web service. So there's various kind of APIs that are being given to you, like for example, Amazon, Flickr, etc. Google, Yahoo APIs are there, Twitter APIs are there. So you can invoke with the help of some web service interoperability technology. So there is a standard behind everything in web services or in the web world, so that multiple languages could communicate with each other, multiple servers can communicate with each other, and all the clients would able to access those in the web service or in the web pages. So the mobile web service should also be able to work out with the properly with. Then Eclipse web service tool. How does it works? It works with the help of, again, enterprise edition standard tools. So web WS components that contains tools. What are the tools that contain? It helps you do the development and interaction with the web service. So you can develop a web service and you can develop interacting web service client to process and access a web service. Then extensible web service wizards are there, like web services are there. So there are various web service client that actually consumes a web service. Then you have a web service aunt operation, means what aunt do? Aunt do the build of a project. So you written a code and you do the aunt for building and creating that project that could be useful. And then there's a Apache Access and Apache Access Web Service as the runtime support for the server. So how many type of servers are being provided by the Eclipse? So this is Glassfish, and you can have uh, Apache Tomcat as well. You can have in Eclipse, you can have Apache Access and Apache Tomcat. But what about NetBeans? NetBeans, you can have Glassfish server as well, and open source additions for this Glassfish server and Apache Tomcat as well. So these are the different technologies that are being supported and servers that are being supported. What server do? Server helps you do the deployment and continue. It continues to run uh, on the machine to respond to the request of a client. So these things, what we are discussing, you can develop on your laptop as well, on your machine as well. Uh, so 2 GB RAM or 4 GB RAM is enough for development of these type of project. But yes, it's difficult to maintain 1,000 number of client, 10,000 number of client. So you can deploy it on your own local host and uh, see how the coding works. So you can download Eclipse, NetBeans, and you start developing all this and deploy the web services. So web services components are like they have some specific way of development. This is not that something basic for the core Java. This is something specialized part of Java technology. Then web service preference pages are there. Then there's framework for and finding some frameworks are also there. Then web service explorers are also there. Web applications are there. UDDI like pages are there. WSDL and WSIL like uh, pages are there. XML languages are there. So this web service explorer can do all these things. WSDL models could be done. Then WSDL editors are there. Then web service interoperability validators are there. Means there has to be some standard way of communicating between two WSDL. So for that, web service descriptive language is one of the standard that has been working, and it's also having editor in the Eclipse, how to develop models of WSDL. So these are there. You can write a web service descriptive language, which is an interface for your code running in the backend for the web service. and the client could access the that code of web service with the help of this WSDL. Then Java application design is also there. That you have a to load some functional testing. So the functional testing could be done with this Java JMeter, and we'll discuss this in detail. So there's a testing framework which is named as JMeter for testing purpose. So it is having Java applications development and testing. So the, for example, there it could do what it can do: load testing, behavioral testing. It measures the performance, that how availability is there, how response time is working. It can test different type of web application. It could do static and dynamic web resource allocation for the web application. So all these things are being done with the help of JMeter testing framework. You can similarly have a heavy load to measure the how server could able to handle the load. How you can simulate the heavy load? So it creates artificial thousands of client. They are requesting your server. If the server is able to respond for that thousand of the request, then it means that it is working for the thousand. Then it you can check for the 10,000 simulated client. So 10,000 request goes to the server. Then group of servers would actually respond accordingly, and they could be tested. The network and objects are being tested for checking how's the stand. So a particular resource is being called, particular object is being called, so that the testing could be done. Then it can analyze performance under different load test. So there are could be many type of load testing could be possible. And there's ability to test what type of front end like HTML, JSON, XML, or any textual format. All these things could be tested and measured. Then JMeter could do many things. JMeter could do web HTTP, HTTPS testing like Java, Node.js testing, PHP, ASP.NET testing, SOAP, RESTful Web Service testing. It can do FTP testing, file transfer protocol testing, JDBC for database, LDAP for message-oriented middlewares. It could do testing. JMS message services like things you can do testing for emailing purpose. Things it could do testing for the SMTP, POP3, and IMAP. Native command and shell script testing. TCP it could do testing. Java object it could do testing. But mainly we are focused about these four type of testing. So the most important one is SOAP and RESTful testing, web service testing for us, because we are studying cloud testing. So in the cloud testing, these are the things that could be useful for with the Java JMeter testing. So performance analysis of static and dynamic resource handling by a web server, web dynamic application could be tested, load testing for the functional behavior and measure could be done. So how much load it can be a server can be a HTTP, what are the protocol it follows, HTTP and HTTPS, whether they are correct, Java based, Node.js, PHP, ASP.NET. So these are the things that could be tested. Then SOAP and RESTful web service testing is also there. So we'll discuss this SOAP and RESTful web service testing in detail. So this web service test plan you can do like you go to the file and create a template. Simply file in a tool like this. There is a file and you create a template. Then you build a SOAP web service test plan. What you do in the SOAP web service test plan, you simply select HTTP request default and you just put the server name of IP address. How you can do all these things? It will create automatically SOAP request, and SOAP request is being created, and you mention the path of that web service. How you can mention this path? Here there's a path slash weather ws slash weather dot asmx. So you can mention the path like this, and then you do the testing for the RESTful web service, and similarly you can test for the rest. So it is for the SOAP message. So SOAP message for the zip code 60601, it will forecast the zip code for and what should be the city for this zip code. So the response will come to you, the city name. So this is SOAP request, and you will get similarly SOAP response from this ws.cdyn.com.weather ws. So this is how web services work. So similarly for the RESTful web service, you can modify the HTTP request. And HTTP request, what you mention, you select method and you just put to select one of the way that you want to test, like update, put, post, crude operation you can uh, do. Crude means create, read, update, delete. So then this body, in this body you need to mention JSON file or XML file or any custom text that you want to transfer to the server, web server. So you are a client in terms of web JMeter, and in that JMeter you just mention what type of operation you want to do, post, put, delete, and in that you just put the JSON and XML body, and you just transfer it to the server and server will respond it, and then you can do the testing. Then SOAP user interface, SOAP UI testing. So SOAP UI is a type of tool like JMeter. So we discussed about JMeter. Now we'll discuss about SOAP UI. So SOAP UI, will discuss this today itself. So what does SOAP UI do? SOAP UI do, it's an open source commercial product, and how it can do, it can help you to the web service testing, soap based web service testing, or even other type of web service testing could also be done with the help of soap ui testing framework. What it can do, it can create, manage, and execute the testing uh, environment for RESTful, SOAP, and GraphQL type of API like JMS, JDBC, and other web service type of thing. Then what you can do the deliver the RESTful and SOAP based API for that. Then API testing could also be done with that. RESTful, REST, SOAP, and GraphQL could be tested. Microsoft microservices could also be tested. End-to-end testing could be done. These are the things that you can do as a tester. Then we are basically focused about how RESTful and SOAP API need to be tested, and how the simple API could be tested with the SOAP UI. So we'll move next. How many type of API testing could be possible with the SOAP UI? It's scriptless functional testing that you just simply create and run some complex scenario for testing a web service. There are various type of scripts that you can run uh, on your client side SOAP UI testing framework, and it will work, go to the server and server will respond accordingly. Then security testing, there could be various type of scanning could be done, protection could be done, security vulnerability could be checked. Then you can do the load testing, means some existing functional API it could test. Then API mocking could be done, means mimicking some real web service, that whether it is mimicking working or not. So the protocol support could be there, simple object access protocol. So SOAP and WSDL could be worked out and tested. RESTful based uh, web service could be tested as representational state transfer uh, type of testing could be done. Java message services JMS could be tested. It is a open source, so there is a large amount of community which is working, and you can have a develop. You can do the development for SOAP uh, framework as well. Then SOAP UI testing framework would be like you have a calculator. That calculator, you simply mention the link of that web services for the calculator, and you can start processing. How you can create a new project? You just go to file menu and create a new project. Then you have to import the WSDL. How you can import a WSDL? You need to initialize the WSDL link. You mention the WSDL link over here from browser. You can select a simple a file of WSDL file that you have downloaded previously. So WSDL file could be there of a web service. You simply browse it, or you just mention HTTP colon slash slash www something del online. So this is a link. So there are two ways to initialize a WSDL, read a WSDL. Then you create a sample request for all the operation. You can create a test suite for importing WSDL for the imported WSDL. Then store all the files and project relatively for that project. Then this is a example of request. So you just simply copy paste the WSDL path, or you can extract and parse the. After that, what it do? SOAP-UI, it extract and parse the WSDL to create various operations, like there's add operation, divide operation, multiply operation, subtract operation. In this, you just have to mention what two integers that you need to add. So request one will generate when you'll click on this request. So add operations will come up, and this is a SOAP request. So this is a SOAP request SOAP code. In this temp dot int a, you just mention that 1 plus 2. For int b, you just mention 2. So that when you click on the run over here, green play button, the request will go to the server. So this is how SOAP request will go to the server, and server will do the processing. Means business logic would be there a plus b. So it will return you 1 plus 2 will be 3. So 3 will be returned out in terms of SOAP response, and you'll get a SOAP response over there. So this is how it is working. Like this is a better clear picture of that. So the int a 1, int b 2, and when you click on the play button, the request will go to the server, and server will do the processing, and result will come up. Add result would be 3. So enter two integer values as request value 1 plus 2, and press the green arrow, this button, and you will get the response as 3. Then you can alternate to all these things is simple form view, means graphical user interface. So I even go for form over here and request int a1 into b2, and then you just send the response. You'll get the overview of a result. Add result would be 3. So same thing that over here in the terms of uh, overview form is there instead of just XML. So if you press this tab for XML, you'll get the raw XML data over here. So there are various type of testing could be done with this SOAP UI. So how you can do the RESTful API testing? You just go to the file, create a new REST project, and then you have to mention the link, fundamental link of the URL for that web service that has RESTful operations that you want to, and click OK. Then you have to, in the framework, you have to select whether you want to test GET operation, post operation, put operation, delete operation. What is purpose of get operation? To read out the data and retrieve out the data from a server. And post is for adding a new data or new resource to the server. For example, you can have a Facebook as a web service. So you just request this image should come out. You read out that image or you read out that post. Whether it works or not, you can do the testing for that. You could post your new data. You write a text and you post on your wall. This is wall testing for the posting. Then you put means update that there's already uh, data over there in your wall. You just need to edit that post. So with the put operation, you can do that, and you can remove that post if you don't like that post. It's something happened to that. You can run a delete operation for removing that post. So this is how a RESTful API testing could be done. So there are various type of test suites, and inside those test suite, uh, there is test cases, a particular type of test cases. For RESTful request test step is given over here. This is a hierarchy for that. There's a projects, and in that project it is having rest project 1, and it is having multiple test suites. Like test suite 1 is there. So in this test suite 1, there could be multiple test cases could be there. Test case 1, in that test case there could be multiple test steps also there. In that test step, what you are doing, you want to find by status. There is a web service that this swagger.io, you can find and run some complex operation on this, and you can run this operation with this green button. When you close the current window for the request, test cases for the target request editor. So there are various functionality of SOAP UI, JMeter. So you can read out and learn for the testing of web service and cloud-based testing, all these things. So SOAP UI create test cases for the corresponding, automatically it creates a sample test cases. And in that sample test cases, you mention the input parameter that you want to do the testing. And in that way, a REST request could be sent to the server. So this is the test step. You just play for that. It will go to the server. So this is for the IDE, Eclipse, NetBeans, Eclipse, and testing frameworks like JMeter, two testing frameworks, JMeter and SOAP-UI. So I hope that you had understood these things. So we'll discuss in the next class, we'll discuss web service slicing for regression testing of web service that could help in the intra and inter operational analysis. Anything you want to discuss or any query? Okay.
No, sir.
Okay. Thanks. So we'll meet in the next class. You may ask any question about the project. Anything about the project? Okay, so we'll meet in the next class.